Hey everyone, welcome to another installment of Harry Potter Theory. Today we'll be discussing why Newt Scamander was allowed to keep his wand after being expelled from Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Newt Artemis Fido Scamander was an English wizard born in Britain in the year 1897. Growing up in a magical household, Newt was always fascinated by his mother's hobby of breeding fancy hippogriffs, which presumably encouraged his lifelong love of studying magical animals and creatures. After studying at Hogwarts as a Hufflepuff student, Newt eventually went on to become a famed magizoologist. In this vocation, Newt penned the Wizarding World's best-selling text, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, which instantly became an approved textbook in the Care of Magical Creatures classes taught at Hogwarts. Within this same text, as noted in his author biography, Newt enjoyed an incredibly successful magical career, joining the Ministry of Magic at a young age in the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures. From almost the beginning of his tenure with the ministry, Newt rapidly climbed the career ladder within the institution, receiving promotion after promotion due to his prodigious knowledge of bizarre magical animals. After creating official, nationwide registers and legislative bans that helped form the laws of fantastical beasts within the Wizarding world, Newt was also awarded the Order of Merlin, second class, in 1979, a distinct honor within magical society. We also know that from the Fantastic Beasts films that Newt Scamander was a crucial member of the group of people who helped take down the Dark Wizard Gellert Grindelwald, alongside Albus Dumbledore, over the course of 2 decades in the mid-1900s. All this to say that Newt Scamander clearly had a very successful life as an accomplished practicing wizard. But now, why is all that so important? Well, because Newt Scamander, Order of Merlin second class and famous magizoologist, was expelled from school before he even graduated. And being that the only other Hogwarts expulsion case we have to compare Newt's experience to is that of Rubeus Hagrid, Hogwarts gamekeeper and keeper of the keys, Newt's success as a wizard seems downright confusing. Of course, this is due to the fact that these two cases played out so extremely differently. Where Newt left school around 16 to take on a job at the Ministry of Magic, Hagrid was pushed out at the mere age of 13 in disgrace. Newt not only got to keep his wand, but he used it every day to perform magic for his job. Hagrid's wand? Oh yes, that's right. Snapped in half and tossed in the bin. Or at least I'm guessing it went into the bin. In any case, this begs the question, why was Newt Scamander allowed to keep his wand after being expelled? The question becomes even more relevant when you consider both Newt and Hagrid were kicked out of school for similar infractions, endangering students with their interests in magical beasts and creatures. As it turns out, no one seems to know the answer to this question for sure. Honestly, not even the author herself, who has yet to provide any real answers, other than the following statement which she shared on X back in 2016. All will become clear, trust me, which was in response to another user asking for answers to this very question. Yet here we are 8 years later, once again asking the very same thing, with no more clarity than we had a decade ago. After all this time, it would appear that all we have in answer to today's question is speculation and theories. So with that in mind, here are the top 5 theories that I like as to why there's this extreme difference between these two wizards' experiences with respect to expulsion from Hogwarts. Theory 1. Newt's case didn't result in anyone's death. Unlike with Hagrid's case, in which Hogwarts student Myrtle Warren was killed, no one was harmed in the event of Newt's expulsion. There's also the fact that Hagrid was accused of reopening the Chamber of Secrets, a place within the castle that housed a basilisk intent on murdering Muggle-born students. By contrast, Newt was accused of endangering his classmates with experiments that involved a Jarvie, which is basically an oversized ferret that can mimic human speech. Obviously, there's a bit of a difference between a giant, muggle-murdering snake and an overgrown rodent. So I suppose it could be argued that due to the greater threat posed by the reopened Chamber of Secrets when compared to that of a Jarvie, and the fact that someone died, when Hagrid was expelled, his punishment was greater. Theory 2. Dumbledore vouched for Newt. Quite a few fans out there believe that the reason Newt was allowed to keep his wand was because Albus Dumbledore vouched for him. It's believed that Dumbledore either knew or suspected the truth, that it was actually Newt's fellow classmate and friend, Leta Lestrange, who was conducting the dangerous experiments, and not Newt. Therefore, Dumbledore went out of his way to ensure that Newt didn't receive the most severe form of punishment alongside his expulsion. Where I take issue with this theory is the fact that Dumbledore also seemed to believe in Hagrid's innocence, who was later proven to have been framed by Tom Riddle, the future Lord Voldemort. Tom Riddle even notes to Harry in the Chamber of Secrets that only the Transfiguration teacher, Dumbledore, seemed to think Hagrid was innocent. He persuaded Dippet to keep Hagrid and train him as a gamekeeper. But being allowed to stay on as a half-trained wizard, tending to the grounds of a school, while generous for what could have happened, clearly isn't as good as getting to keep your wand and becoming a highly celebrated wizard like Newt. It seems incredibly odd to me that Albus wouldn't have fought just as hard for Hagrid to keep his wand as he'd done for Newt decades earlier. Theory 3. Wand destruction with expulsion came later. Being that Newt was born in 1897 and was reportedly expelled when he was 16, the year would have been 1913. Hagrid, on the other hand, was expelled in the early 1940s, 30 years after Newt's expulsion. This means that, between Newt's expulsion and Hagrid's, it's possible that new rules could have come into place regarding school protocols. Theory 4. Newt was older than Hagrid. Since we know that Newt was 16, and presumably in his 6th year at Hogwarts when he was expelled, and Hagrid was only in his 3rd year and likely around 13 years old, this could explain why Hagrid was forced to hand over his wand and Newt was allowed to keep his. To explain, being that Newt was in his 6th year at the school, he'd already taken all of his OWL, or ordinary wizarding level exams, and learned the majority of core subjects taught at Hogwarts. Hagrid, by contrast, hadn't even completed his 3rd year of school, which means he would have been considered a danger with a wand. Newt, on the other hand, was only 1 year away from graduating, and was already fully capable of controlling his magic. This seems even more likely when you consider the fact that Harry Potter himself only completed 6 years of school at Hogwarts before going on to be more than capable of defeating Lord Voldemort. Theory 5. Armando Dippet was prejudiced. The last theory that I'll leave you with today as to why Newt was allowed to keep his wand, but Hagrid was not, is the possibility that Armando Dippet, Hogwarts headmaster while Hagrid was at school, was prejudiced. After all, Rubeus Hagrid was a half-giant, and within the wizarding world, many witches and wizards have grown up believing giants to be an incredibly violent species. A species that is known to lose their temper quickly and without much warning. With this in mind, it's reasonable to think that perhaps Professor Dippet judged Hagrid based on his heritage, which happened to be supported by the word of a brilliant older student by the name of Tom Riddle. It was my word against Hagrid's, Harry. Well, you can imagine how it looked to old Armando Dippet. On the one hand, Tom Riddle, poor but brilliant, parentless, so brave, school prefect, modelled student. On the other hand, big, blundering Hagrid, in trouble every other week, trying to raise werewolf cubs under his bed, sneaking off to the Forbidden Forest to wrestle trolls. And with that, we've come to the end of today's video. What did you think? Do you agree? Why do you think that Newt Scamander was allowed to keep his wand after he was expelled? Please share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, remember, it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live.